One of my favorite photos I've ever taken is of my son mid-flying sidekick, completely airborne, hair going every direction, frozen perfectly in the air. People see it and immediately ask me how I got it. And the truth is, I spent years taking photos that felt like nothing. But later on, I realized that the photos that make people stop scrolling are the ones where the photographer asks themselves one question before they press the shutter. What do I want this photo to do? That one question is the one that separates a photo that feels like something from a photo that just documents something. That's the difference. So I'm going to walk you through exactly how I use that one question at every session, even the ones I wasn't planning for, and how to pull it off technically once that one question has been answered. Most photographers assume that the answer lies somewhere in their settings or their gear or even the right lighting. And none of that is wrong, but at the same time, none of that is the thing that makes the difference. And here's what that actually is. Every photographer I've talked to that has the same experience of feeling stuck, they already know their settings, they know how to find decent light, so they press the shutter and their photos come back technically correct, but completely emotionless. And the instinct is to always go looking for the technical fix to this problem. But technically correct and emotionally present are two completely different things here, and your settings can only get you one of them. The missing ingredient isn't something you adjust in your camera. It's the one question you ask yourself before you ever pick it up. What do I want this photo to do? Not what do I want it to look like, but what do I want it to do to the person who sees it? Do I want them to feel the energy in this moment? Do I want them to see the personality of this kid? Or do I want to make this image one that will stop somebody in their tracks? This is a completely different question from are my settings correct? And it produces a completely different photo. That's when you start making decisions differently. Where to stand, or what to wait for, how to direct your subject, or what you're even looking for in the first place. And at that point, technical correctness becomes the floor, not the ceiling. So how does this question actually work in practice, especially when you're on a shoot that you didn't plan for and you didn't have time to think through everything? If you're getting the conceptual side of this, but still feel like the technical problems are getting in the way first, I have a free guide called Fix It Fast. It covers the 5 most common problems that photographers run into and walks you through exactly how to diagnose and fix each one. The link is in the description. When my son was younger and getting closer to earning his black belt in Taekwondo, it was time for me to do his annual pictures. I knew that a standard portrait session wasn't going to capture who he actually was in that moment. So before I picked up my camera, I asked myself the question, what do I want this photo to do? A kid who's worked years to literally fly through the air. As I was setting up for this shot, I asked him to run and do a flying sidekick by jumping as high as he could, and I made a few specific decisions that made the photo turn out the way that it did. First of all, I got down really low and I shot from a really low angle. That way I could create more space between him and the ground to make it look more like he was airborne, not just jumping a couple feet off of the ground. And I kept my instructions for him really simple. I said, on the count of 3, run and jump as high as you can doing your flying sidekick, and try to look at me when you're jumping. So we did that about 4 or 5 times until I was sure that I'd gotten a good shot of him. And that photo is one of my best photos in my portfolio. And it happened because I asked myself what I wanted before I ever pressed the shutter. That's the difference between documenting a moment and creating one. You don't have to wait for something to be happening in front of you. You can design it. I have so many examples of this in my portfolio, like asking a little girl in a fancy dress to twirl around or play with the edges of her dress. You just bump up your shutter speed a little bit and let her go. And kids love to get in a pile of raked up leaves and throw them overhead on the count of 3. Or having a senior in their cap and gown maybe blowing glitter or confetti into the camera. Asking couples to dip one another for a kiss. That always gets people giggling. And jump shots are my absolute favorite. Kids or groups of friends or entire families and even wedding parties will jump if you ask them. Jump shots are so much fun and everyone enjoys it. And babies don't need much direction at all. At a cake smash session, just make sure you have your settings ready before they take that first bite of frosting, because you never know what kind of results you're gonna get. Or simply having someone snuggle closely with their newborn and capturing the sweetness of those early days. Or having people snuggle with their pets or show them affection. That always brings out the best in everyone. Every one of those moments were created, not found. Before each of those photos, I paused and I read the situation, and then I decided what I wanted that photo to do. And then I built the moment around that. And while it's entirely possible to plan out a full session with all the details that would make it great, it's not necessary. You don't need a styled session or a planned session to do this. You just need to ask the question before you reach for your camera. The one thing that makes all of this possible is having your technical settings fast enough to where they don't slow you down when you're in the moment and you're trying to capture things. If this is already making you think differently about your next session, do me a favor and hit like. It tells YouTube to show it to more photographers who want to take better, more meaningful photos. When you're creating moments, especially ones with motion, the setting that matters most is your shutter speed. For anything moving, you need at least 1/500th of a second to freeze it cleanly. Kids jumping, hair flying, a running toddler, anything really. And here's how I specifically handle it at my sessions, so I don't miss anything and I have my settings the way that I want them to be. I set my shutter speed to where I want it, and I set my aperture to where I want it, and I leave my ISO on auto. And on the note of aperture, don't go too wide when chasing motion. If you shoot at 1.8 with a kid in front of you running and jumping around, you'll miss focus more than you nail it. But using f4 or f5.6 gives you a lot more space in that focus plane so you can nail focus easier. And then your auto ISO is going to handle the rest. As conditions change and as you move around and the light changes, the camera adjusts your exposure so you're not having to stop and mess with it. I used this exact setting a few weeks ago when I was shooting my daughter's session. We were moving around and changing angles and going from open shade to open light, and auto ISO kept my exposure dialed in the whole time without me ever having to think about it. So you choose the two settings that matter most for your shot, and the camera takes care of the one that just needs to keep up. And in natural light conditions outdoors, any ISO that your camera chooses is going to be just fine and leave you with a clean image. It's worth mentioning, if you're not fully in manual mode yet, or things are moving fast and you don't want to risk fumbling with your settings, using shutter priority is a solid option. You set your shutter speed, which I would recommend a minimum of 1/500th of a second, and your camera handles aperture and ISO. It's not how I prefer to shoot, but it gets the job done when you're moving fast. The goal is to be comfortable enough with your settings to where they become automatic for you. Because the more mental space your settings take up, the less you have to create the moment you're going for. Once you get used to answering the question of what you want your photo to do, and your settings are second nature, you can do both at the same time. If the technical side of your photos is still the thing that gets in the way, you're getting blurry shots or they're dark or grainy, and you're not sure what's causing it, check out Fix It Fast. It's my free troubleshooting guide covering the 5 most common problems photographers run into, with a clear walkthrough of how to identify and fix each one. The link is in the description, go grab it. It's worth mentioning that not every photo is going to be your best one, and that's not the goal. The goal is to ask yourself the one question before every shot. What do I want this photo to do? Not what do I want it to look like, but what do I want it to do to the person who sees it? And sometimes you just need a photo to document the moment. Someone's another year older, or graduating high school, or someone's getting engaged. Those moments are worth documenting, and they don't have to be over the top, but they can still be captured beautifully and uniquely by your own style and vision. Even if that's just through your choices of lighting and angles and posing, that's the entire shift. And that shift will change what you and others feel in your photos. If you want to try practicing this, but you don't feel like you're fully ready to execute these decisions at your client sessions, there's a way to incorporate this into your practice sessions on your own time. I have a video specifically about intentional practice. Not just shooting more, but shooting with a clear, specific goal so you're actually improving at something. And the specific thing can be you asking what you want each of your photos to do. Watch that one next.